Ah, hello, traveler. What brings you to the Library of Infinite Wisdom? I see. You wish to further understand our reality, how it works, the past timelines, other worlds from our own. Let me begin with this. You are a work of fiction, and so is this world. You are a character within what is known as a role-playing game. Alright, back to reality. We are here to discuss the RPG genre, its quirks, its twists, its turns, history, and future. Let's start with the definition of a role-playing game. From the phrase itself, it's to assume a role, or be in the shoes, of another character within a fictional setting. Doesn't that mean that every game is a role-playing game?
It's an award winner. See, look, it's got a red ribbon.
Not quite. Is this an RPG? Is this an RPG? Is this an RPG? This writer seems to be confused. The role-playing game genre is quite broad, with unique characters, mechanics, and worlds. Stay with me now as I discuss some of the core aspects of what really makes an RPG. You, the player, are placed in the perspective of an in-game character, having a role to play within this new world you're playing in. To be more specific, we have to delve deeper into what gameplay aspects RPGs usually focus on. So let's first discuss two main types of development in video games: intrinsic development and extrinsic development. Intrinsic development is when you, the player, are developing a better grasp of the game and its mechanics, honing your skills and heightening your knowledge. For example, when you practice and finally land that combo in a fighting game, that's intrinsic development. The game didn't change, nor did the character you're playing change. You and your proficiency with the game itself was the one that developed. Extrinsic development, on the other hand, is when the game gives you something to signify development, typically by modifying certain aspects of the character you're playing as. After completing a battle or a quest, the game might give you currency or experience points to give you a sense of progression. The player might not be doing a single thing differently, but they'll perform better because their character has grown stronger in one way or another, whether it's more points in a certain stat or a new skill learned. Based on these descriptions, you'd probably be able to guess that a defining characteristic of role-playing games is an emphasis on extrinsic development. In RPGs, this can mean gaining experience, leveling up characters, and acquiring stronger abilities and equipment. In many games, players have to grind for hours, trying to level up their character or get the best equipment, so that their favorite characters could crush their foes with ease and style, remain unfazed absorbing any attack, or have the most efficiency when it comes to utility, healing, or even resource management and gathering. Keep in mind that these forms of development are not mutually exclusive from one another. Just because an RPG focuses on extrinsic development doesn't mean you can still improve your strategy and execution, or that the gameplay in and of itself isn't engaging. Speaking of combat, RPGs have diverse combat systems. Some are about exploring areas and finding enemies along the way, while others have random encounters. Some are turn-based, while others are more freeform and dynamic. How can you have a role to play without a well-defined and immersive world to exist in? Interesting themes, stories, and settings are the foundation for the experiences the players will have in this world. Exploring the world, observing and interacting with the NPCs, partaking in quests, and seeing that their actions have an impact on the world supports a sense of immersion, that this world exists, its cogs move, and that these places, its people, and their political and societal structures are founded on something believable. For example, if you look at a city or a village in The Elder Scrolls V Skyrim, you can see that it can actually function in its world. They live in a world littered with giants, trolls, wolves, and ruthless bandits, so they built protection for themselves, strong walls and trained guardsmen. The most important building, the Keep of the Jarl, is strategically placed so attackers would have to painstakingly go through all of the other defenses of the city before reaching it. How they get essential resources, like food, is told through the environment that surrounds them. This village in particular processes wood. I know this because of how the village is structured. They cut the wood via a sawmill powered by a river, which is why this village is called Riverwood. There are also ways to show that the player's journey is making an impact on their world, perhaps through NPCs' actions and dialogue, or physical changes to the environment. Or quests that correspond with the needs of the society they're living in. I've said before that the RPG genre is very broad. Due to its nature, there are many different types of RPGs. Action RPGs, first-person party-based RPGs, MMORPGs, roguelikes, sandbox RPGs, tactical RPGs, and more. So many types to immerse yourself in. But how did it get to that point? It's come quite a long way actually. Let's dive into the history and some notable games of the RPG genre. The RPG genre has humble origins, the simple desire to, well, make one's own story. It began with tabletop games, the ones where there were game masters or dungeon masters. It was appealing because players could use their imagination to the fullest and carve out their own journey along with other players, with each character having unique abilities and proficiencies which they can utilize throughout their quest. As technology advanced, they were able to communicate with a wider range of players through virtual messaging boards. Using these, people could roleplay even from other countries. Nowadays, RPGs are enjoyable and popular, both single player and multiplayer. Both the ones where you make your own bold stories in a thematic world, and ones that follow along an immersive experience set by the developers to make you invested in the characters, the world, and the story. RPGs can make you experience thrills like no other, or perhaps make you cry uncontrollably. Western and Eastern developers have their own mindsets and influences when it comes to making role-playing games. The East's most prominent RPG makers are Japanese, which is why the term JRPG is so prominent. A couple of notable games and companies from the West are Bethesda's Fallout and the Elder Scrolls series, Blizzard Entertainment's Diablo and World of Warcraft, Toby Fox's Undertale, and New World, a relatively new title from Amazon Games. Eastern RPGs have their own fair share of notable games like The Legend of Zelda, Pokemon, Chrono Trigger, From Software's Dark Souls series, Final Fantasy, the Shin Megami Tensei series, and more. As previously discussed, the Western and Eastern sides of RPG game development often have contrasting design philosophies. James Clarendon of Redfly Studios, who had previously worked on titles such as Deus Ex Invisible War and Thief Deadly Shadows, has said the following: I think that most Western games are made for the audience, while many Japanese games are made to invite the player into the designer's world. This rift between cultures and game design philosophies can inadvertently cause controversy when a game from one side of the world is shared with the audience of the other, especially when there is content regarding something as sensitive as religion and its themes, symbols, and characters. In the West, Christianity is quite prominent, believing in a single god, while in Japan, there are countless gods. As a result, a few notable JRPGs have the plot of killing the equivalent of a god in their world. In one instance, the Xenogears series featured an antagonist similar to the Abrahamic god, while in Final Fantasy Tactics, the antagonistic force had some semblance to aspects of the Catholic Church. To avoid this issue, Nintendo has made modifications to their games before shipping to a Western audience. It's interesting to see how diverse each of the world's cultures can be, offering different perspectives on various aspects of life, often through art. Diversity is appreciating these differences, but disagreements between two parties still emerge. In an art form as versatile, impactful, and interactive as video games, here are some thoughts to consider. Should art be censored? Is it on the appropriate authorities to decide what kind of content is allowed to be in video games? Or does the responsibility fall on the game developers themselves, balancing respect and restraint with bringing their authentic visions to life, and with it, their criticisms, themes, ideas, and stories?
The current state of RPG genre, well, it's not exactly dead, nor was it alive. However, with the release of New Worlds and the hype of New Worlds, it has gained popularity again. Big streamers such as Shroud, Courage, JD, Tim the Tatman, and many more have enjoyed New Worlds, and as streaming it, they played it. However, the RPG genre was still very well known back then also, with big games such as Final Fantasy or The Witcher, Diablo, World of Warcraft, Skyrim, and many more. So the current state of RPG games is alive. It always has been alive. It hasn't died. It was never dead, but it's still alive. Since some people would enjoy the open world setting or enjoy the single player story mode in RPG games, people would like to assume roles in these RPG games. Like, either they would be a champion who would have to slay a demon lord or save the townspeople, or they'd be a champion of darkness and do the complete opposite and reign terror amongst others. The genre is somewhat heading towards a more massive open world game, yet story-based, where players can come together, they can play together, they can guild up, party up, and help each other with their quests, or with their item grinds, EXP grinds. They would pretty much come together and help each other grow, either as a guild, as a party, or as a solo player.
All right, well, gentlemen, this is going to be it. We're going to be knocking on the door here in a second. Listen, I don't really know how this is going to go. If you die for a good cause. This is for the Marauders. We will ruin the Syndicate's life. Take them away from this land. Our forefathers were born here. Our children were raised here. All right? Take it back. Take it back. Oh, my God, they're winning.
Don't react. Let us watch.
Okay.
Don't hold your mic down and react is what I meant.
No, dude, no. Why is it focused?
Make sure you got.
そうまずちょっと気になったのがビエラよくないめちゃめちゃよくないともうね一つの種族気になっててそれが多分めちゃめちゃ人気だろうけどララフェルかわいいもうこんなんずるいペコじゃんこんなんかわいいよ
So, what kind of armor are we talking about?
Light, but durable. Can't constrain movement, and I gotta be able to get in it without anybody's help.
That all? Sure it shouldn't be self-cleaning. And how about it wipe your arse after you take a shite in the bushes?
Sounds great. Can you make a suit like that?
No, but find someone who can and I'll gladly meet them.